Well, hello everybody, this is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine. Welcome to Poetry Spawn Live, our Sunday morning news show exploring current events through the lens of poetry. Thanks so much for joining me. Good morning, Caitlin Bucksbaum. Nice to see you. Like that coffee there. I got mine too. Haven't had enough of it yet, which is always the case, as I stumble over to the computer and get this Poetry Spawn going. Before we begin, I should say that Rattle is a publication of the Rattle Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit working to promote the practice of poetry. We've been in continuous publication for 26 years now, I think. We're really close to 26. And are unaffiliated with any other organization. So we just do this because we love poetry. And if you love poetry, make sure you click the like button, make sure you're subscribed, and all the different ways you can do that. Because that's how things spread around the internet in this information age. And it really helps if we spread poetry, because poetry is a better way at looking at the world, I think. And I know you think so too, because that's why you're here. So please do click the like button and share or whatnot. Now, the way Poetry Spawn Live works, of course, is that it's an open mic show. And first thing you do right now, if you haven't sent the poem in yet, if you submitted it through Submittable, I already have it, we're good. If you haven't submitted it yet, you can send it right now to openmic@rattle.com. That's openmic@rattle.com, so I can show it on the screen as you read. And then you pick one or the other. Either, if you'd like to be on video, send me a chat message over Skype. The Skype app is free. You just got to get a Skype ID and connect that way. And then send me a chat message to Rattle Poetry, all one word. That's Rattle Poetry, just like it sounds. Just send me a chat message that way. I'll wave back, and then I'll call you up within the next hour when the time is right. The other option is to just do it over the phone. And the phone number is 818-850-7727. That's 818-850-7727. Just let it ring a couple times, then hang up, and I will call you back when the time is right. We just go in order of requests received, try to make sure we get first-time callers in every time. James DeSilla's here. Hello, James. Nevedita, hello. Juliet Holman, hello, good to see you. Angela Gardner over there, Richard Westheimer, Paulette Warren, nice to see a nice crowd. Thanks so much for joining us on your Sunday morning or afternoon or whatever it is. For me, it's first thing in the morning because I'm a night owl. I wake up at like 8 a.m. and then come over here and set this up. So before we begin with the open mic, though, let's call up today's poet. We actually have two because I have a poem coming up tomorrow as well. But first, we're going to talk to Judith Sornberger, I should say. And her poem was about the death of Lawrence Ferlinghetti. So let's call up Judith right now. Hey, Judith, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. So glad you could join us on Poetry Spawn Live.
I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, so first of all, where are you located? I can't remember.
I live outside Wellsboro, Pennsylvania, on the side of a mountain.
Very nice. Okay. And so your poem this week was about Lawrence Ferlinghetti, who passed away at the age of 101, I think, right?
Wow, yeah.
Do you want to actually, I have to confess to everybody on the show, and maybe you've noticed over the years watching this, that I'm not like a poet's poet. I haven't read every poet in the world, and I've never read very much of Lawrence Ferlinghetti.
Every poet in the world?
Yeah. I've never read Coney Island of the Mind. Or I can't really, and we went to San Francisco a couple years ago. I walked by City Lights Bookstore. We didn't actually go in.
I've never been in there either, even though I've been to San Francisco, but only once when I was 18.
So what did Lawrence Ferlinghetti mean to you? I mean, the thing I like about tributes when we publish tributes to poets after they pass away is because I get to learn a little bit about what they meant to people. And so what did Lawrence Ferlinghetti mean to you?
Well, I mentioned that he was my first poetry book, not my first poet, but and I think there was just this amazing freedom in his work, and also he has some real political passion in his poem "I Am Waiting." I love the music in his poetry. He once said that a poem should arise to ecstasy somewhere between speech and song.
Oh, that's a great,
and
yeah.
I love it. I mean, I can't say that my poems all do that. I hope some do. But,
I think this one does. I mean, we got a lot of feedback already this morning. I had about 6 or 7 emails of people saying how much they appreciated the poem.
Oh, nice. I've gotten some emails through, I guess, through the Authors Guild.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been really nice. And one of the things that people say is that, a couple others have said that this was their first book of poetry. And somebody that I think is about 30 years younger than I am said that. So I think it's one of those iconic books,
Yeah, it's interesting. There's I don't know. There aren't many like wide sort of access doors or something to poetry that a lot of
Right.
people come into, and Ferlinghetti was definitely, one of the major ones of the 20th century. You have to say, right?
Oh yeah. And I think I think one of the reasons I loved him, or I continue to love him so much, is he has that really Whitman-esque aspect to his work that is just all embracing and electrifying. I think he is one of them, one of the very most iconic of the last century.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And into this one.
Yeah, for sure. Do you remember emotionally what it felt like reading that book for the first time?
Because I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd studied Emerson and Emily Dickinson and Stephen Crane in English class, and I had found Emily Dickinson pretty amazing, but and of course was writing all these kinds of copycat poems. But I think that this, and of course my tribute to Ferlinghetti is sort of a copycat poem too, but I think I just remember, sort of feeling shocked by some of what he was saying, some very sexual stuff going on here. But there's one of the poems that's a favorite of mine in this book is a much quieter poem, and it's called it doesn't have a title, but The Penny Candy Store Beyond the L is where I first fell in love with unreality. And it's just image after image that just I remember feeling incredibly stunned that he could, it's one of his shorter poems, that he could so swiftly put me in that candy store as if I'm also watching, or maybe I am the breathless girl, the girl who comes in her in the rain, her breasts, her breathless breasts, something about that. Anyway, I just felt like I was totally in that moment, and in a way that I'd never felt in any other poem so far in my very brief life.
Well, that is just a wonderful description. Thanks so much for sharing that. Do you want to share the poem now?
I will. Just a second. Let me find it here.
Okay.
I've got my copy from the antique store. Let's see, Penny Candy Store. Might take me a second. And another poem that I just love from this is I Am Waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And I use that a lot with students. They loved my college students loved Ferlinghetti. And I think even though, some of his language is kind of dated, talks about cool cats and stuff like that. But they really got into the spirit of his poetry, and they loved writing their own I Am Waiting poems. Now, let's see, where is that darn poem? Maybe it's in the first part. One of the things that I didn't even realize or didn't remember until I found this book again and started reading it after many years was that he also wrote ekphrastic poems. And, he's got one addressed to, or one in which, just a minute. I am so sorry. Here it is. Here's the penny candy store. The penny candy store beyond the L is where I first fell in love with unreality. Jelly beans glowed in the semi-gloom of that September afternoon. A cat upon the counter moved among the licorice sticks and Tootsie Rolls and oh boy gum. Outside, the leaves were falling as they died. A wind had blown away the sun. A girl ran in. Her hair was rainy. Her breasts were breathless in the little room. Outside, the leaves were falling, and they cried, "Too soon, too soon."
Oh, I love that. I've never read that before. That is,
Isn't that fantastic?
That's a wonderful ending. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing? And I think it comes closer to rhyme than almost anything else I've read of his, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Her breasts were breathless in the little room. Outside, the leaves were falling, and they cried, "Too soon, too soon."
Yeah. That is such a great poem. Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that. It is.
Thanks for your patience in waiting for me to find it.
No problem. It was worth it. Do you want to read your poem now on finding a Coney Island?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And I hope I do a better job than I did on the recording because, to be quite frank,
Mm-hmm.
I had a few gin and tonics.
Well, it probably smoothed you out a little bit. It's always a good way to be.
Okay. On finding a Coney Island of the mind in an antique shop. Ferlinghetti, you were my first. The first book of poems I ever bought, forking over cash earned, swirling soft serve into cones, squirting ketchup peace signs onto burgers at the DQ. Back when almost every sunset above the kitchen sink in the wounded wilderness of Omaha, Nebraska, occasioned a rebirth of wonder, even as the war plowed graves for guys who could have been my boyfriends. My friends and I donning black armbands and occupying our high school's center staircase, singing "We Shall Overcome," back when my first French kiss was startling and sweet as a surrealist treat from your penny candy store beyond the L. And I wanted to be your girlfriend, to leap from one line to the next till I joined you and your wild pals in San Francisco, the purely naked young virgin ignored by the crowd watching the erection of the St. Francis statue and singing to herself to the syncopated clickety-clackety rhythm of typewriter keys in my basement bedroom in the 60s suburbs. Somewhere in the next 5 decades, I misplaced your circus of the soul, its phallic towers lit like Christmas on the cover, maybe during the wild, hot ride of childbirth or skedaddling from one hapless marriage to another. So I'm walking down these aisles of what once was the abandoned and the tawdry, a Cupid doll won by some boy for his girlfriend, missing most of her carnival feathers, a pressed lead Indian minus the horse his curved legs once embraced, an engagement ring whose diamond is roomy as ancient eyes. But here you are for $2 and in great shape for your age, glowing like a renaissance of wonder, like the absurd, arcane belief I came here for a reason.
That's just excellent. Thanks so much for sharing that poem and for joining us today.
Thank you. I've sure enjoyed it. And Lawrence Ferlinghetti, long may you wave.
Yeah. Thanks so much. It was Judith Sornberger with On Finding a Coney Island of the Mind in an Antique Shop. Thanks so much, Judith.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. And yes, that was Judith Sornberger with a Ferlinghetti poem. We had about maybe a dozen Ferlinghetti poems to choose from, maybe 24 even. And actually we had, it was a pretty busy week. We had a class, I think at the El Cerrito High School, where a teacher assigned poetry spawn to the students. So we had about 100 students as well from that high school sending poems, which is always fun. As long as only one teacher does that at a time, it's fine. If we ever get to the point where like multiple teachers are doing that, it'll be a little frightening. But but it was a good week of poems. We had poems about Tiger Woods, poems about all sorts of things, and we have an extra poem for you. I'm actually going to run it. Usually I do the extra poem if we have room for another poem on Tuesday, but A.E. Stallings' poem was just happened to be coming up Monday, and it makes more sense to do it Tuesday because that's the day she's going to be on the Rattlecast. So I flipped them, and this is going to be tomorrow's poem by Cody Cucker. And let's call up Cody. If you're watching, I should say maybe Cody's watching right now, turn off your stream wherever you're watching this when the phone rings or Skype rings and I call you, because otherwise it gets confusing. There's about a 30-second delay. So make sure when I call, if you're, whether it's the phone or Skype, just talk to me through that. Don't keep the YouTube or Facebook or whatever stream up, because otherwise you'll be lost. But let's talk to Cody Cucker, and then we will get on the open lines. But Cody had a really, really fascinating, tragic poem too. Let's see if we can get Cody here. Hey, Cody, how you doing?
Good, Tim. How are you?
I'm great. Great to see you.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me. It's such a pleasure. That was an amazing poem about Ferlinghetti, and I think she described an experience, Judith, that's pretty common, I think, for a lot of us. Coming in touch with Coney Island of the mind and being blown away, but leaving it for a long time and then reflecting upon it, it brought a lot of good memories back. So
yeah, for sure. I hope we get some more, on the open line section. I hope we get a few more Ferlinghetti poems too. It'd be good to hear. And also we had a bunch of, this was the 200th anniversary, I guess, of Keats's death. And so we had a bunch of Keats poems too. So hopefully we'll get a Keats tribute or two as well. But you had a fascinating poem about Basan Char. Do you want to just explain a little bit? Really, people should read this article in the Wall Street Journal, which was just like heartbreaking and engrossing, and and I didn't know much about it, so it was really just amazing on multiple levels. Do you want to explain what your poem was about?
Yeah, so with Myanmar, there's a lot going on. I mean, the coup has recently occurred, and sort of there's resistance to the military takeover of the government, protesters dying in the street, which is absolutely horrible. So it's a complete mess over there. But I think what's being swept under the rug is a dilemma that was occurring about a month ago and has been occurring, which has been the sort of exile and transfer to refugee camps of Rohingya Muslims throughout Myanmar. And so I read this article. And the circumstances are tragic enough, but in it there were these really interesting details, and one that really caught my attention, and sort of, as I said in my note, makes it something of like biblical proportions, is that these people are being forced out to this island known as Basan Char, and it's translated, I believe, to the Beacon of Hope, and it's in the middle of the sea. But interestingly, it didn't even exist until 2003, right? So it's the result of thousands of years of settlement building up, delivered from the Himalayan mountains by the Magenya River. And so, as you saw in the article in the Wall Street Journal, it's just been decided, the Myanmar government has just decided that they're just going to transport all these refugees to this island, that even all these NGOs have said, no, this is not safe. I mean, we have no certainty that the island is going to be able to survive the seas or the weather or the climate. I mean, it just came into existence. And so that was one of the things that really stuck with me, is how this thing that wasn't even there has all of a sudden become a mechanism for government oppression and the persecution of people. And so that really caught my attention and sort of really put it in a context of sort of sympathy and pain and trauma that is, reminiscent of some of the older epics like the Iliad or even the Bible and whatnot. So.
Yeah. The plan is to relocate, I guess, 100,000 Rohingya Muslims to that island who are being persecuted by the Buddhists, by the Myanmar government. And the island is like a sandbar, basically. I mean, when a typhoon comes through, that is just a disaster waiting to happen. And yeah, I don't know. It's just, and it doesn't look like a very pleasant, place to live either, of course.
No. I mean, we think fun and islands and being in the middle of the ocean, but there's no palm trees here. It's just a big pile of sand in the middle of nothing. And the other thing in the article that stuck out to me is, the way that the girl interviewed in the article arrived there was by being thrown overboard with dozens of other women and just finding this piece of land. So
yeah, she as people were forced to flee Myanmar years ago and to settle in refugee camps in Bangladesh, people tried to find better circumstances, and she was trying to, because all the men had gone to, where was it that they went? They went to
Malaysia.
Malaysia, yeah, okay, yeah. So the men had gone to Malaysia looking for work, and so in Malaysia there are a lot of, I guess, men from this group, and not any wives, and so wives are now being smuggled across in boats to Malaysia. And this woman has tried 11 times to get to Malaysia, and men either the boats sank or the people stopped her, and at one point she was thrown overboard, and ended up on this island. Yeah.
It reminds us of the Middle Passage. I mean, they're talking about hundreds of people being stored in the hold of these ships, for weeks or months on end, and then with COVID, it's made even worse because all these other countries that were formerly accepting refugees have now shut down their borders because of the pandemic. And so it's a real mess, and it's unfortunate. And like I said, with, the way things are developing, I think this certain facet of the tragedies ongoing in Myanmar is sort of being pushed aside a little bit. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. And your poem is such an interesting style too. You mentioned it's biblical. It's a very rich, just style. It's very dense, writing in a style we don't really publish a lot. We don't see a lot of submissions in this kind of writing style. Is that how you always write, or was it trying to capture sort of the bigger, biblical, like you said, aspect of the situation?
Yeah, I mean, I would call myself, a blank verse poet. I have a lot of respect for the sort of heft of a metrical line. The poets, that I'm most involved with are Robert Frost and Philip Larkin and Yeats or Derek Walcott. So in grad school, I mean, I started, interestingly, being into the beatniks and Ferlinghetti and all them. But when I got into grad school, I just formed this amazing appreciation for these more formal poets and the real, agility and muscularity of the iambic line. Mm-hmm. And I spend a lot of time too reading, the classic epics or David Ferry's translation of the Aeneid. And so before I wrote this poem, I don't know if we're all familiar when's the last time we read the Aeneid, but at the end of book 4, there's this amazing description of Dido committing suicide because she's been abandoned by Aeneas. And in it, once again, it has the character of sort of, as all Greco-Roman myths, right, of making the rivers personalities, of sort of having the gods embody elemental forces. And so all of those influences sort of came together in the creation of this poem and sort of making it a mythos and a folkloric entity. But then also trying to mix, I think, as you see in the Sedeka parts, something more contemporary, right? A more contemporary sort of straightforward delivery, shorter stanzas, references to cell phones and whatnot. So, yeah, I tried to balance a more traditional poetic cadence with a contemporary situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's just such an interesting mix of just everything, styles and subject matter, and a really fascinating poem. I really appreciate that you highlighted this story for everybody and then put it into poetry this way. Thanks so much for doing that.
Thank you for giving it an outlet. You know how hard it is to sort of publish longer poems, and I'm flattered that you've decided that it's worthy for Rattle. So
yeah, for sure it is. And since it's a longer poem, we're not going to have you read it again. I'm just going to play it for everybody at home. But thanks so much for joining us and talking about it, and I hope everybody enjoys this as much as I did. And yeah,
thank you so much, Tim. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah. See you later.
Bye.
Yeah, that was Cody Cucker, and his poem is Basin Char. And like I said, we're going to play this. I'm going to play it for you. And this will be the poem of the day tomorrow. So it'll be in your inbox tomorrow morning, but this is a preview of it. And do read this article in the Wall Street Journal. It's paywalled. So if you don't have a subscription, it might be worth getting a subscription to read this article, or finding your way around it, as I did not do. But it's a really, this is something the world needs to know more about, because hearing like personal stories about what is actually happening in places like that just changes the way you think about it. And it's sort of been an abstraction to me and sort of the back of my news radar. And this story from the Wall Street Journal really put it home, as did this poem by Cody Cucker. So here it is. This is Basan Char by Cody Cucker.
Basan Char 1. Mountain said go, and dawning dusk like a hood, Magenia clasped her sacks of silt, and on a wave of horses wild she went. She went and wound through valleys, traded, hybridized her stores. She went through jungles thick and used the mangrove roots as sieves. To the sea she went and cast a pure seed of land, Basan Char. Ill-fated blip in a cemetery of water, pregnant tawny belly bare amid blue sheets. What this womb would release she knew not, if her Lord God mountain knew. The old word go meant build, and so she did. For ages her island grew in the sea, sprouted and nursed on the milk of the sun. Traffickers in nightmares skirted her gift and scowled before its true use dawned on them. Then, without violence nor a tender bone, they watched it grow, the ocean thin as over its bald head tides rushed, the ocean swaddle it with froth that formed as currents parted round. And as it goes, soon enough it was land, Basan Char, offspring of the age, desolate and mum. In it the cagey angst of legion, in it bad juju, the doomed saint of oases, penitent and oblivious, it crouched and swelled amidst the floggings of the sea, devout and noble serf awaiting purpose, patiently it found, awaiting feet. 2. Sadeka in the dark among the sharks, Sadeka in the sea, thrown overboard and told to swim where, she knew not. Sadeka, a skeleton lost in gobs waterlogged, being tugged through currents wan. Sadeka among the women, dozens. Ions beneath the sibilance of surf are splashes, far below the altitude of waves of what seem seals, pitch as the night. Sadeka, Persephone of Basan Char. Sadeka, spotted far out in the sea, her cadre streamed into mountains' blank dream. In the middle of nothing then something, in the belly of the sea virgin land, just sand, but land. Sadeka stopped swimming. Sadeka moaned from new shore, a siren into the sound the women flocked. They prayed, Allah, but too quick, for it was limbo. 3. Basan Char felt a crumb within his sheet, driftwood, some stone, he thought, the first turtle, and drifted back to sleep, soothed by caresses of Magenia giving herself to salt, largesse unmatched, the constant souse of sand, and more of him to be touched by the sea. But then there was the tread of 100 feet, and then there was the banking of steel boats, the blunt puncture of pylons, and dead weight of blocks, and pipes, and wires, and shrill wailing. He listened, Basan Char, for intimations from mountain through the mouth of Magenia. A cannonball, he steeled himself against the weight like and of his predestined people. Of hope the beacon he heard it said, no shade in this light, not even a rock shadow. I ruthless, I dread, I of all, for eyes of all, making this here man clear, shining through skin until the heart at work on this small lawless plain where no fibers and spotless air connect this cruel species. Upon his back, Basan Char, blocks are built, delivered unto the sea as haven. He saves only from wind and deaths by water and stretches time. Provides a promenade worn by aimless feet, contrails of misery and memory, fuming outblown headscarves of purgatorial maidens he'll swallow. 4. Sedeka gets a cell phone. How? Who knows? From mountains' bowels too such comes. The wires where a light bulb was also, granting charge. Transmissions to just as helpless kinsmen sent out across the service-hating sea. Sedeka and the ladies each day plead. No more poetry in a grain of sand, in the sun, the canonical ocean. Only terror and terror and terra firma, stripped to bare bones and haunted by some old trauma that brittled rock. Sedeka dwells on the back of Basan Char, ridicules his easy submission to fate, landmass subject to self-same brutal laws, and spits on him. She regrets resisting her grave. Feeling the wind claw at her headdress, she, Sedeka, takes the cloth between her fingers and sees again Yasmin hanging from hers.
And that was Cody Cucker reading his 4-part poem, a bit of an epic, Basan Char, which will be featured tomorrow. And do read this Wall Street Journal article when you get the link. Maybe I can put it in the notes or something really quick, or somebody can pull it up. Just type in Wall Street Journal and Basan Char. Just a fascinating and heartbreaking, like I said, story. Really putting, human faces onto what's going on there. Let's see. So it's a bit of a long opening. We're past a half an hour, but we're still going to have open lines. I'm sorry, everybody, for the delay. But let's get to Nivedita first. We'll just we'll see what we get. Let me find Nivi's poem. Hey, Nivedita, how you doing this morning?
Hey Tim, I'm doing great, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing great. Let's see. So, what do you have for us this week? I have to pull it up still, but
So it's about this restaurant in New York. It's I think a steakhouse, if I'm not mistaken. It's called Peter Luger, and it's about how to maintain social distancing and sort of keep the restaurant open, because apparently it's at 35% capacity now. So to sort of fill in the tables, they've gotten some wax statues of Madame Tussauds for loan, and I thought it was just hilarious to see which statues were there where. So I just took 3 or 4 of them and decided to write a small poem about it. I know it's a weird as usual, but just this time.
Yeah, let me put this up. This is so we have an Al Roker here at the steakhouse, and who else do we have? Who is that? John Hamm.
We have John Hamm. We have Audrey Hepburn, and we have Michael Strahan.
Yeah.
As far as I don't know who else was there, but these were the 4 I could see. So.
That's great. We have on the screen here, there's Jimmy Fallon. Yeah, this is interesting. Okay. So, so go ahead and read your poem whenever you're ready.
Social distancing with the stars. Walking in through the doors for a treat well-deserved, the golden glow from the chandeliers, spotlights, Don Draper welcoming you to the bar. Confused, but with a drink in hand, you head on out, and Al Roker points you up the stairs, where Jimmy Fallon waits to be served. Audrey Hepburn, in full Holly Golightly regalia, chin in hand and pearls at the neck, waits for breakfast at Peter Luger's, deep in conversation with Michael Strahan. Is this a new season of supping with the superstars? Or is it feasting with the famous?
Excellent. Nivedita Karthik with Social Distancing with the Stars. Thanks so much for sharing that, Nivi. Another fun one.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's always lovely to speak with you.
Yep. Same here. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay. That was Nivedita Karthik with Social Distancing with the Stars. And let's call up Joseph Nolan next. See what Joseph has for us today. So Joseph Nolan didn't answer there, but he also called. Maybe the Skype's not working. Let me see.
Tim, how you doing?
Good. How you doing today, Joseph?
Good. So I have my poem for Lawrence F.
Excellent. Let me put it over here into a Word doc really quick, and then we'll get started. So, is there anything you want to say about Lawrence? How much did he influence your poetry?
Not too much, but I did really enjoy his poetry, and he really is a hero of the 20th century in terms of literature and free speech. So I had been turned on to him as a teenager by my girlfriend, and I read a little bit at that time, but more recently I went through a lot of his books, and I wrote this poem. I had it published, so I sent it to him when he was 99 years old. He sent back a little postcard, indicating that he wasn't well, but he did sign it personally. I could tell by the broken handwriting.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And that's one thing we didn't mention earlier, that as a champion for free speech, wasn't it Ferlinghetti who was really influential in making Howl famous and
Yes.
defending it?
Well, he published it, first of all. Then he was charged criminally for doing so on the grounds of pornography. So then he had to go through a trial, and he went through a trial. I think he was defended by the ACLU, and he won. He was acquitted. And after that, a lot of the boundaries about what could be published were taken down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's just a wonderful thing from our perspective, because we try to publish anything. And do you know, is there any good documentary or movie about the Howl trial? It seems like there should be. It seems very cinematic, but I'm not familiar with any.
Well, I recall watching something. I was doing research on the beat poets, and I went through a lot of those things on YouTube. There's a lot of videos, and I did find something describing all that on YouTube.
Well, I'm surprised. It's one of those. What's that actor who likes poetry? I can't remember the young guy. I'm surprised he hasn't done it yet. But anyway, why don't we hear this? This is for Lawrence F.
Okay. If you match those brilliant, sparkling blue eyes to the words on the page, so many words, lines, stanzas, poems, and books of poems, so many. And so many of them so very, very good. You will know a poet has been here, a poet among you, listening to your breathing, opening to your feeling, passing through you, in and about you, taking with him your pearls of truth. Oh yes, a poet and a thief, who stole a piece of your soul and put it on paper, as poets are wont to do.
Thanks so much. That was Joseph Nolan with For Lawrence F. Thanks for calling in to share that, Joseph.
Thanks, Tim. Bye-bye now.
Yep, goodbye. Okay, next up, let's call. We have two numbers that are new. Let's do these two next. We have a 908 and a 570. I should have done these first, but I didn't notice, frankly. So let's see who that might be.
Hello?
Hey, this is Tim with Rattle. Did you want to share a poem?
Yes, I would love to.
And who am I talking to?
This is Mary Grace Mangano.
Okay, let me try to find. Did you email the poem or submit it?
I sent it through Submittable.
Okay, let me find it then. And what was your poem about?
So my poem is actually about John Geddert, who died by suicide this week after 20-plus charges were brought against him. He was an ex-USA Olympic coach. He coached the Fierce Five in 2012 London Olympics. And on Thursday, in the news, the charges were brought against him, and he was supposed to be arraigned in court, and he had seemed like he was going to cooperate. And then later that evening, he didn't show up to the court, and they found his body, and he had a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Yeah, that's I don't know. Is it does it mess up the case not to have his cooperation? That's something I saw the story a couple times, but I didn't really catch that detail. Is it bad news, or is it just like, I don't know, whatever?
Well, I guess I was just moved by first this announcement that it seemed like, he was going to cooperate with the court system. I think this case had been active for 3 years, or the prosecution in Michigan, trying to just like clarify all of the evidence that he had been, abusive towards the gymnasts at his gym, and a number of other things, including kind of covering up for Larry Nassar. But then when he took his own life, there were a lot of comments from some of those gymnasts and from other people in the gymnastics community that he sort of took the easy way out instead of facing the sentencing, which would have happened Thursday evening. So,
so it was already in the sentencing phase. I see. Yeah. Well, let's hear this poem then. Dismount.
Yeah, dismount. In the sheriff's office out in Eaton, he agreed to surrender. By late afternoon, found dead by self-inflicted gunshot wound. The body was left without the soul. This life suddenly became a corpse. Some say it was easy, cowardly narcissism instead of remorse. Maybe instead of a gnawing distress from a sense of guilt over his crimes, he'd glanced at the gold medals glinting instead, the story neatly boxed in his head. But then again, the head is what he shot, as if finally to wipe it out, to blot and turn to black all the ill that lived there so long. For 20 years in TriStars, he twisted lies and lives and demanded perfection on injured shins, literally stepped on young girls' feet. You could number their bones, broken, defeated. That had to be a lot to carry and likely got heavy to hold. He'd covered up for Larry, too, and abused his way to Olympic gold. Long down from the power trip, fear made its slow, icy drip down his neck in the cold county courtroom. He was used to a gym where there were cushions to catch him, but he was afraid of the wrong God in the end. If he'd kept living, little and alone though he might have been in that cell, he might have saved his own soul. John could have been brave instead of the blustering bully that had to have the last word. He might have seen that he was a temple, like you, and something might have stirred, might have burned his heart of stone. And if you squint, you just might see that he was a beloved son. You might look closer and ask, what has he done? What has he done?
Thanks for sharing that. That was Mary Grace Mangano with Dismount. And yeah, just such a, I don't know, a complicated thing to think about. Like, imagine you have one life and you spend it that way, And I don't know, it makes you wonder, makes you think about whether or not there should be hell, things like that. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, thanks for letting me share it.
Yeah. Thanks so much for doing that, and hope you can call in again.
Yes,
Bye.
thanks.
Yeah, let me add Mary Grace Mangano onto our call list so we know who it is next time. And we have another number who's a first-time caller, so let's do that next. We have plenty of time. We'll do Angela Gartner and Richard Westheimer. I'm in no rush as long as you're still here, so let me try to find that. Yeah, 570. Let's see who that was. Oh, it says that number is not available. Let me try again. Yeah, 1570. I wonder. So if you're at the 570, I'll try again. But it says the number is unavailable. I'm not sure what that even means. I've never had a phone number come up as unavailable before. So maybe there's some kind of block on the phone and I can't call you from like a digital service or something. If you're at the 570, give me a call again. I'll try just to answer if we can get the timing right. But in the meantime, let's call up Richard Westheimer. Hey, Richard, how you doing today?
I'm doing okay. I sprained my ankle yesterday, so I'm so happy to be diverted by the poems that you're reading. I've totally forgotten about it until you asked me how I'm doing.
Well, that's sorry to hear that. I sprained mine really bad. I twist them all the time playing softball, but then in basketball one time, I landed on someone's foot. I couldn't walk for like 2 months.
Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah, so
I try to
hopefully,
run. I try to run every day, and
hmm
having to take a month off is sort of
yeah, that's
there'll
rough.
be some interesting poems that
hmm
are suffused with my with my angst.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Sprains can be worse than breaks sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Great poems that you picked today. Oh my goodness. The voice and reading of the Rohingya poem was just stunning.
Yeah, that's an interesting guy, that Cody. I never had any interaction with him, never read any of his poems before, but it seems like he might be a fun interview too. I think he has a lot of knowledge back there, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
And that it was clear that like the poem was sort of suffused with the energy of the story, not just sort of derived from it.
yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. But so what did you want to share? Cracking the code?
So I sent in cracking the code, but I sent you a link just a moment ago if you wanted to share the actual image, because this was taken, the unfurling of the Perseverance rover's parachute was just one of the most thrilling moments I've had since John Glenn circled the Earth in the early 60s. It was just like so beautiful. And then it turns out there was a secret code in the patterns of the parachute
hmm
that internet got on in a hurry and decoded. So this poem's about that.
Okay, let me do you know, is this a long video? Let me see if I can. Maybe I'll
No,
do the.
it's just a link to two pictures, I believe. Shows um,
Yeah, let me see. Okay. Well, we have this unfurling here. Yeah, so you kind of see it on the preview. I wonder if there's no ad, I'll play it. Nope, there's an
okay.
ad for there's an ad for some movie.
Oh, okay. I didn't. There we go. There we go. It just
Anyway, we saw some of it.
Yeah, it just sort of unfurled and had this beautiful pattern, and it was a thrilling thing. And then it turns out there was this code, um, and the code was from a Theodore Roosevelt speech.
Is that what that was from? It was a great line. What was the phrase?
Dare mighty things,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
which was in a Theodore Roosevelt speech about, like toughness and,
hmm
like being, well, you get, it was Teddy Roosevelt.
hmm
So I'll have a little bit of it in the epigraph here. So I'll go ahead if
Okay.
you've got it up
Yep,
there.
yep, I have it up. Go ahead.
Okay, cracking the code. And the epigraph rather long, but it's far better to dare mighty things than to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy much nor suffer much, because they live in the gray twilight that knows neither victory nor defeat. And that was a speech by Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, boy, they used to do speeches really good, didn't
Oh man,
they?
yeah, it's very muscular. So here we go. The drogue deployed in a blue-black sky pulled 9 Gs as it slowed the rover's descent. A rosette of white and red, it opened wide to reveal to an observant few a code that drove the NASA team, the words that TR wrote of a strenuous life, of toil and hardship, of failure and strife. These are not a footnote, but the stuff of creation, of life's drift, from the gray twilight to glorious triumphs. There is no easy peace, just all the mighty things from day to day, from here to enough, of how we end and how we begin, like dying well, washing the dead, tending the sick, writing the one poem, writing the other, giving birth, being born, sitting silently, leaned against a tree, sitting silently, listening, hearing, passing by a panhandler, sitting by a panhandler, depressed, getting up in the morning, sleep deprived, suckling a baby, wiping shit from the butt of an aged parent, knowing from the taste of soil if it's sweet, forgiving a friend, learning bird songs.
A wonderful poem. Thanks so much for sharing this, Richard. I really liked it.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate the morning.
Yeah, always. Thanks, Richard.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Let's see. So I just got a message from Adam Montree. If there's space, I'd be up for reading. Yeah, definitely. Hey, Percy is Adam's poem. Let's call up Adam right now. Try to find it. Hey, Adam, I just hear myself in the background, so click out of that first so we don't you don't get confused.
Yep, is that better? I just clicked out of it.
Perfect, yeah, and we don't have you on video if you wanted to be. If you don't, that's fine too. But if you do, click the camera button. There you come. Perfect. Good to see you. So what do you have for us this week? And where are you calling from, too?
I'm calling from Bath, Michigan, just outside of Lansing, so about 10 miles from Michigan State University.
Ah, very cool. Well, so glad you could join us. And what do you have for us? Hey, Percy.
Yeah. So we've got a postcard poem. So
yeah. So what was this about? Explain it.
So it's about perseverance. So we're in the time of poetry workshops online since that's what everyone's doing. And our current poet laureate was doing a workshop this week about place, and our former poet laureate was doing a workshop about form and making sure that your content meets form. And so I was like, okay, we're doing form and place, so let's write a postcard poem to perseverance.
Yeah, that's perfect. And who's the poet laureate down there?
It is Laura Apple right now, and then the former is Dennis Heinrichsen.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So, hey, Percy, I have it up whenever you're ready. Go ahead and read it.
All right. So, airmail, par avion, perseverance, rover, Mars, Milky Way, universe, 292 million. Hey, Percy, wish you were here, but I know you are out having your own adventures these days. I was thinking about you when I read a story of a soccer ball that survived the Challenger and now is in a high school trophy case. The signatures of the soccer team faded but legible. Today was almost 45 degrees Fahrenheit, 7 degrees centigrade, 280 Kelvin. So, of course, we rolled the windows down, cranked the music, turned our arms into waves, had a beer on the porch. I smelled the first skunk of the season, swerved around an opossum crossing the road, saw a partially revealed, half-eaten deer leg, still frozen, gnawed on, sticking up like a flagpole out of the bank as the snow melted around it. More boxes of seeds for the farm are arriving daily. Things are coming alive.
That was great. Thanks so much for sharing that. Are you familiar with Paul Nelson's postcard poetry project? And
so I wasn't until this week, and so Laura was like, "Hey, if anyone wants to send me a postcard poet," and I was like, "I've never heard of these," and then I found out Rattle did one maybe 2018, and then I found the postcard poetry thing, so I just signed up for it last week, and
very cool.
It sounds like it should be super fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and you the style, it reminds me of what he's doing. What Paul's sort of goals are is to have it be like a spontaneous, real, I don't know, the intimacy of a postcard actually is sort of his focus, and so that it felt that way. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you, and that not go back and edit, that just kind of write it is like a very different process than I'm used to.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thanks so much. I think you understand the form already, so that's perfect. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, so that was once again Adam Montree with "Hey Percy." I was going to ask if he came up with Percy as a nickname, or is that something people are calling it, the Perseverance Rover? But I like that. I'll try this 570 number again really quick just to see if it. Oh, it's ringing this time. So whoever, we'll see. So maybe we'll get this to work. Let's see. Well, it's ringing, but no one's answering. This is the 570 number. Oh, I guess we're not going to get it. But it rang that time. It's strange. I wonder why it wouldn't ring before, but it rang before. Let's call up Angela Gardner. Ah, and she has a big leap to Mars too.
It's ringing, but no one's answering.
Hey, Angela.
Yeah, you were trying to call that other number, so obviously.
Yeah, well, they didn't answer, but so what do you have? Do you want to be on video or no video today?
No video today. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So what did you want to share this morning or this afternoon for you, I guess?
Well, today's kind of a morning where it's like I wonder if I even should be writing poetry with all the wonderful poets today. So everyone, and but anyway, Richard's poem was really good. But this is about the rover too, because honestly, when I saw the pictures, I just felt it just was so refreshing just to see the land and just to see it's just so amazing what we can do. Because obviously I wasn't, well, maybe not obviously, because no one knows how old I really am, but I was too young to know about to see all the moon landing and everything, and obviously so it's kind of like this is my moon landing in a way, something, and we're going to Mars. Like, how cool is that? So it was just refreshing of all the craziness that happened this year, that just to see this land of just things that we can discover, and just something that is a blank slate. So
yeah, for sure. It's just nice to have good news for a change, and something to be proud of and happy about, which is, it's just so rare in the news, the way the news is formulated now. Yeah, so it's great to read. I've really enjoyed reading all the poems that we've gotten as submissions about the Mars lander. So why don't you go ahead and read it, the Big Leap to Mars.
Yeah, it's just a quick little poem that I put together. So, Big Leap Tomorrow. Sorry, can't talk today. Big Leap to Mars. It's a new step for mankind. The rover is rolling on the rocky surface. My imagined silver boots are burning. It's hot and unlivable, but I feel renewed. The wind is the only movement. A landscape that's vast and untouched. An empty red planet with possibilities.
Excellent. Thanks so much for sharing that. And it really does bring out the possibilities is what feels good about it, I think. That's true.
Yeah, I'm just it was beautiful to see. Even with all the dirt, and it was just like awesome. So, I mean, and I'm not like a big, I'm not big space, but it felt like a movie almost. Like, really? Like, this is happening? It's so cool. So
yeah, have you watched the movie The Martian with Matt Damon?
No, I haven't actually.
I haven't, but I love the book. The book was so realistic. I assume the movie is worth watching.
Yeah, I mean, I heard it, but I know I always feel, especially probably. Oh, the books is always better. Read the books first.
yeah, but I don't know. I mean, the movie got good reviews, and I don't know. The book was so it was written by an actual NASA engineer, and so just all the details are exactly correct, which is just interesting in that way. But anyway,
I'll be checking out for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Angela, for calling in. As always, it's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure too. Have a great day.
Yep, you too. Okay, let me make sure we got to everybody. There was no answer at the 570, so we couldn't get to you. Yeah, I think we got to everybody. I want to finish off, in addition to the Saiku, I thought I would do this other Ferlinghetti poem that we published several years ago, if I can find it really quick. Let's see, if I have to spell Ferlinghetti right. Yeah, I didn't. How do you spell Furling? Furling. Where's the H? Is that right? Okay. Yeah, so we have two. I've totally forgot. We have two poems for Ferlinghetti's birthday. I don't even know if I knew this. So in March 23rd, 2017, which was Ferlinghetti's 97th birthday, Emily Cernaker wrote this poem, and for his 98th birthday. And she just says, Lawrence Ferlinghetti is celebrating his 98th birthday this Friday. I'm a fan. And I love the ending of this. This is an inspiring way to finish a poem and finish a show. So I wanted to read this. But then you can go, too, and look up William Taylor Jr. had a poem for his 100th birthday. So let's do that, and then and we have one more poem too. We will also do a poem by Carlton Johnson too. So we'll do that, and we'll do this, and then we'll do a haiku. I'm in no rush today. I have a lot of I have to make the ebook for the spring issue, and I really don't want to. It's a boring job. So we'll take a little we'll do a little long show today. But this is Emily Cernaker with Lawrence Ferlinghetti is Alive. And let's hear it.
Lawrence Ferlinghetti is alive, I say, to a man in the drugstore checkout line not completely out of nowhere. He's wearing a black and white City Lights shirt with Lawrence's handwriting. Do you know Ferlinghetti? I ask, thinking of that baseball canto poem. How does it start? Watching baseball, eating popcorn, sitting in the sun, reading Ezra Pound. Yes, I do. Is he still alive? And what a gift that I get to say the good news. An old man is alive in San Francisco. With all of its pop-ups and startups, there is still poetry. The breeze of the bay is tipping his black fisherman's hat forward. A man who telegrammed Ginsberg asking, when do I get the manuscript? A man who went to trial, gets Small Voices printed even still. Not just poems, not just paintings, not just space. Listen. An old man who lives in a little apartment is taking his daily walk where birds break at the crest of the park. Dogs run off their leashes, the sun won't go down for hours. I swear to God, there are good ways to live this life.
Yeah, I just love that ending. I swear to God, there are good ways to live this life. I think about that all the time, actually. And hope, wanting your life to be like Ferlinghetti's life, maybe. And it's a good poem by Emily Cernaker from Poetry Spawn. I think that was Poetry Spawn, right? Yeah, March 23rd, 2017. And now let me read Carlton Johnson's poem, The Old Piano, which he just sent moments ago. And the reference, it's a science poem. Here's the science story really quick. This is choir singing can improve cognitive functioning among the elderly. That's interesting. I'm not surprising. The way, use it or lose it in music uses a lot of your brain. Researchers have made new discoveries on the benefits of choir singing, which may include positive effects on cognitive functioning similar to playing an instrument. So that is the article that inspired Carlton Johnson's poem, and this is Carlton Johnson's poem, The Old Piano. And I will read it for him right now. The Old Piano. The old Wendell and Marshall Baby Grand groans now. Its pedals no longer reach the floor. I can recall that thrall of practicing scales in spite of Mrs. Davidson's bickering. The past sings like a string struck. Now the piano, owned by my sister, now creates a hollow tune being dismantled, beyond restoration. Perhaps if I gave it my memories of playing with a little help from my friends, or hearing others more proficient than I, making the box of strings sing. Now your memories are stilled, sweet piano, and so it goes. Your treble and your bass reverberates. I will always remember your tunes in the key of C. Great sounds in that poem, but I love the past sings like a string struck. Great poem. Thanks so much for sharing that, Carlton. And now it's time for my really quick haiku. And the story that I pulled up this week was here. Let's see if we can pull it up. This is from NYU. And so researchers at NYU, research at NYU said social media use driven by search for reward akin to animals seeking food, new study shows. And so what they did here was they looked at the patterns of people using the sort of operant conditioning reward system that is social media, the sort of Skinner box that we're all sitting in front of right now. And they mapped basically the patterns of behavior to actual mice in a Skinner's box, and then showed it to sort of map perfectly. So it's using the more likes we get, the more we post. And at the same kind of ratios as a mouse would do, pushing a lever for a food reward. And this is they talk about the hunting trigger. And that's what we're sort of triggering as we use social media. And so that was the article I was looking at today. Sort of not surprising, but then this is the haiku, or the saiku. Here we go. Wasted day in the woods hunting for likes. Wasted day in the woods hunting for likes. Which is what I do all the time, because I want poetry to spread everywhere. And the way to do it in the modern world is to push that lever and make the make that little dispenser dispense us more. Basically. So please do click the like button and share. It's a little awkward always. I have very mixed feelings about just using social media in general. Like, I feel like poetry is the antidote to social media because we focus on, the details in life and slowing down our pace and thinking in a sort of meditative way, engaging the world more fully, more peacefully. That's kind of what poetry does. And that's not what social media does. But everybody's on social media. And it's a wonderful tool to spread this good stuff that is poetry. So I'm always very conflicted about the use of social media. Just one little flip of the Facebook algorithm, and we lose half our traffic. And it's not really anything that we do. It's just what they, how they're trying to make money. And so anyway, do click the like button and try to share this. The best thing you can do always is keep the Rattle website bookmarked, though. Always go there because then the algorithms don't matter. Make sure you sign up for our daily poem by email so you get that directly. And subscribe to the issues, which are always the best way to read poetry is just in print, I think. Although it's great hearing the poets read and reading along with them on these podcasts and things. So anyway, that was your saiku for the day. And now let me say that this week's guest in the Rattlecast is going to be A.E. Stallings. And of course, if you're a subscriber to Rattle, which y'all should be, A.E. Stallings was the interview in Rattle number 70. Just a wonderful interview. She's a classic scholar, translated Lucretius, who I think is just an amazing work of translation there. And then she's a wonderful formalist poet. Her newest book is Like. And so if you read that interview, which had a lot of really fascinating details and facts in it, a lot of just discussion that was really great. I mean, she was wonderful to talk to, a lot to learn from A.E. Stallings. But if you have any follow-up questions you'd like to ask, flip through that interview again and think about what you'd like to have followed up on. And then you can ask, and I'll pass them along in the chat window during the show. Note the special time. It's 1 p.m. Eastern instead of 9 p.m. like normal. So it's 8 hours earlier. That's because A.E. Stallings lives in Athens, Greece. And so the regular time would be like 3 a.m. or something there. So we moved it up 8 hours, so it'd be a reasonable time for her and a reasonable time for me. And join us Tuesday, March 2nd, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. The prompt for that for Tuesday, if you haven't written a poem yet, is write a poem about one or more of the four elements: earth, water, air, and fire. So write an elemental poem, which is kind of a good fit since the elements are Greek classics. See, weird. I just pulled this up at random. Like, Megan made these prompts a long time ago, and I just go down the list, and they always end up aligning in an interesting way with a poet. So, I guess not always, but sometimes they do, and this is one of those times. So write a poem about earth, water, air, and or fire, and that's your prompt for this week if you'd like to participate in the open mic after the hour with A.E. Stallings. Tuesday, March 2nd, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Rattlecast number 82. Hope to see you there. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and I will talk to you soon. Goodbye.